Hello, my name is Blake Patterson, and welcome to Real Values. On this week's episode, I discuss Dennis Hopper's Out of the Blue, too controversial to find a distributor upon release. Out of the Blue has struggled to find recognition for several decades by only becoming a cult favorite in an indie niche. Despite its recent restoration, Out of the Blue is not a movie people discuss concerning movies from the 80s, along with another unsung masterpiece, River's Edge. Originally helmed under another director, Leonard Yocker, Hopper took over the production and redeveloped the material to suit the lead actress, Linda Manns. The initial script focused on a psychologist, Raymond Burr's Dr. Breen, reforming Manns's troubled girl. Based on the first draft's description, Out of the Blue would have been more conventional than the movie Hopper created in 1980. By exploring the beauty and decay of Vancouver, both downtown urban areas and outside rural areas, Hopper develops a devastating psychosocial study of an alienated teenage girl's experience in a damaged family and how she obsesses over punk rock and Elvis. Opening with a shocking tragedy, Hopper focuses on Don Barnes, played by Hopper in one of his most psychologically nuanced roles, driving a semi-truck with his daughter, Manns's Cindy C.B. Barnes, to school on Halloween. Under the influence, Don drives into a school bus with C.B. yelling at him to watch out, with children screaming from the bus and dust coming from the ground upon impact. Hopper establishes the bleak atmosphere of his movie to suggest possibilities of what will happen later. The incorporation of Halloween into the narrative is a fascinating function before the wreck because it indicates the seemingly ordinary nature of people during a festive day and their aspirations for it. Even if their lives have flaws, Don is about to rip the mask, metaphorically, from the characters' lives and the audience. Having face paint on Manns during the sequence benefits the audience by assuming she is younger before the movie cuts to the present day. Cutting to CB's awakening from a nightmare, Hopper acknowledges her fascination with Elvis and the punk rockers such as Sid Vicious and Johnny Rotten. She idolizes as stars because they are an escape from the banality and frustrations of her life. Living with her drug-addicted mother, Sharon Farrell's Kathy Barnes, and her boyfriend, Eric Allen's Paul, while Dawn is in prison, CB spends much of her time away from school by playing with the radio in Dawn's wrecked semi-truck, which is still on their property, hitchhiking to Vancouver, and sneaking into bars. CB has an adult soul due to being more mature than her parents, yet there is a youthful enthusiasm through her rebellion. As the mistreated CB, Manns exhibits the confidence of John Travolta's Tony Manero in how she moves through every situation and talks back. It is an electrifying performance with a deeply rooted heart beneath the tough facade. In CB's experience, audiences acknowledge how men, from Don's manipulative friend Charlie to a cab driver and his prostitute girlfriend, approach her. These disturbing moments carry suspense about what could happen to CB. CB may be resilient in her spirit, but she is a kid who can fall into traps of predatory behavior. The most exciting moment for CB happens after she runs away from the cab driver and his partner when she attends a punk rock concert. Pointed Sticks, the local band, treats CB kindly amid the chaotic event, and she enjoys herself until she drives a car with naked women in the passenger seat and a photographer in the back seat. As police officers eventually stop CB, Hopper cuts to the traumatic flashback of the school bus wreck and how it reverberates through CB's mind and body. In a few moments during the narrative, Hopper concentrates on CB's disassociation and how she resorts to thumb-sucking and cuddling with a teddy bear to revert to an earlier and more innocent phase in her childhood. These details become more significant once Dawn arrives home from prison. CB and Kathy treat Dawn's homecoming as a possible return to the past for their family, but their aspirations falter as Dawn continues to drink and Kathy injects heroin. The audience may not know the beginning of Dawn and Kathy's trouble, but they recognize the cycle in place for CB. Even though he has many problems, one does understand Don's frustration over the past affecting his job post-incarceration when one of the late children's parents informs his boss about the bus wreck. There is an earlier conflict between Don and the father at his homecoming when the man expects Don and Kathy to tell CB to sleep in her bedroom as the adults party. Instead of verbalizing the conflict at the landfill, Hopper creates a musically driven set piece where the father informs the boss and the boss yells at Don. Then Hopper decides to drive the landfill compactor into the small building where the boss works to defy him. Audiences may watch the actors talk during the set piece, but their dialogue is unnecessary due to Hopper's acute handling of the situation. Hopper is skillful in creating visual poetry where a character's psychology informs their behavior against music, whether it is through this scene involving Don or many moments for CB. Hopper's interest in the internal lives of his characters is firm in his grasp since he considers his images like a painter or a photographer. As Out of the Blue evolves, the narrative becomes bleaker in its depiction of the character's behavior and what CB endures. Due to his firing, Don kills the father outside the father's house with Charlie, and the audience learns afterward about Don stealing a stick of dynamite from the landfill he intends to sell for money. Don begins to abuse Kathy, and the constant tension between both parents increases CB's angst. Since she misses the bus one school day, CB eventually arrives at the school and sneaks into class without receiving a note from the principal's office. Once the teacher sees her, CB defies him by yelling at him and cursing at a smug classmate. Then CB confidently walks onto a football field during practice and pushes a cheerleader onto the ground as she sits and smokes on a hill in front of a gate. When Dr. Breen speaks with CB, he suspects Don abuses CB and Kathy, which leads to more uncovering about the family's past. One night, the intoxicated Don and Charlie drink at the table, and Kathy injects heroin in the bathroom while CB fixes her hair to resemble Elvis in her bedroom. During their conversation downstairs, Kathy cries and reveals her homophobia over the possibility of CB being a lesbian, and Don suggests the horrific idea of Charlie raping CB as if it would correct Kathy's fear. Even though Charlie speaks of CB being a child, the two men walk upstairs with the tearful Kathy and prepare to enter the bedroom. Since CB has overheard their conversation, she utilizes a chair as a weapon to confront the men as Don kicks the door open. CB screams at Don and Charlie for being awful, and at Kathy by complaining about her contempt for men. It is significant to acknowledge how CB views her favorite musicians as gods and not men, which is fascinating when considering the musicians' private lives. In its final minutes, Out of the Blue peaks in its harrowing odyssey toward the abyss with insights about Don sexually abusing CB for years before she stabs him with scissors. After the violent act, CB convinces Kathy to walk with her to the damaged semi-truck to sit inside and talk about Dawn. CB has created a deadly setup where she ignites the dynamite in the truck and dies in the semi-truck as it explodes. To CB, suicide is an end of life's desperation and the familial cycle of abuse. However, one feels about the film's nihilistic tone. Hopper's feature derives from an emotionally authentic place regarding its characters and setting. The emotional evolution of Out of the Blue is the equivalent of waves because the sequences ripple and clash when they are specific to their situations, with its striking soundtrack, including Neil Young's haunting song. Out of the Blue burns in the audience's heart and memory. Thank you for watching this video. Have a great night.